In the winter of 1970, snow fell on a shallow grave in Lansdowne Woods, 6 miles from Baltimore's heart. Two hunters stumbled upon what remained of Sister Catherine Cesnik, a 26-year-old nun who had vanished 2 months earlier on a simple errand for dinner rolls. Her death shattered more than one family's faith. It cracked open questions that would echo through decades, exposing shadows within sacred walls. The young teacher had embodied hope in an era of change, inspiring students at Archbishop Keough High School with her blend of devotion and independence. She lived by truth, spoke with compassion, and trusted in justice. Then she disappeared into a November night, leaving behind only silence and speculation. What began as a missing person case became Baltimore's most haunting mystery. Evidence vanished, witnesses stayed quiet, the church closed ranks, years passed. Then, in the 1990s, former students began to speak their voices, carrying accusations that transformed Sister Cathy's murder from random tragedy into something far more sinister. What if her death wasn't meaningless? What if someone silenced her because she knew too much? Before we get into the story, drop a comment with your country and the time right now. Pittsburgh, 1942. Catherine Ann Cesnik entered the world during wartime, born into a family where faith meant purpose. Her parents, Joseph and Anna, raised their children within the steady rhythm of Mass, rosaries, and service to others. Young Cathy absorbed these lessons like sunlight, excelling in school through genuine curiosity about the world and its people. By 18, Cathy knew her path. The School Sisters of Notre Dame offered her a way to merge education with faith, to touch lives while living her deepest beliefs. "I want to teach," she told her mother the night before entering the novitiate. "I want to help young women find their voices." The year was 1960. Vatican II was born, stirring change throughout the Catholic Church, and Cathy entered this shifting landscape with both reverence for tradition and excitement for reform. Her early years as a nun were marked by rigorous study and spiritual formation. Unlike some contemporaries who saw obedience as silence, Cathy viewed it as thoughtful engagement with her calling. By 1966, Sister Catherine had earned her degree and was ready for assignment. Baltimore beckoned a city where the church was experimenting with new approaches to education. Archbishop Keough High School needed young teachers who could connect with students navigating the cultural upheaval of the 1960s. Baltimore, 1966. Sister Catherine arrived at Archbishop Keough High School as Vatican II's reforms were reshaping religious life. Her classroom became a sanctuary of intellectual curiosity, where she encouraged discussion and critical thinking. Students noticed immediately that Sister Cathy was different. She treated each student as an individual worthy of respect and attention. Sister Cathy saw us, former student Margaret remembers, not just as vessels to fill with information, but as people with our own thoughts and struggles. The late 1960s were turbulent times. The Vietnam War raged, civil rights movements challenged injustice, and traditional authority faced questioning. Sister Cathy became students' trusted confidant, helping those who struggled academically and providing compassionate listening to young women questioning their faith. Her teaching philosophy aligned with Vatican II's emphasis on pastoral care and social justice. She organized food drives for Baltimore's poor neighborhoods, studied works by diverse authors, and encouraged students to think beyond their circumstances. Faculty meetings revealed her thoughtful approach to education reform, advocating for flexible curricula that address students' real-world concerns. By 1969, Sister Catherine had established herself as one of Keough's most beloved teachers. Students flocked to her classroom, parents requested their daughters be placed in her classes, and fellow nuns sought her advice. Yet beneath the surface, Keough harbored secrets that would later cast shadows over its hallowed halls. Fall 1969. The Carriage House Apartments on North Bend Road represented a revolutionary step for the School Sisters of Notre Dame. Sister Catherine and Sister Helen Russell Phillips embraced this opportunity to live outside convent walls, creating a home that blended religious commitment with personal independence. Their two-bedroom apartment reflected their personalities: modest furniture, educational books, and religious artifacts mixed with personal touches. Sister Helen maintained perfect order, while Sister Cathy's areas showed the comfortable chaos of an engaged mind. Living in the apartment was like playing house, Sister Helen would later reflect. We were still nuns, still committed to our vows, but we had this slice of normal life. Their daily routine began with morning prayers before driving to Keough together. Evenings involved lesson planning and quiet conversations about students and church changes. The Edmondson Village Shopping Center became their regular destination for errands. Their neighbors were mostly young professionals and small families. The sisters maintained friendly but reserved relationships, representing the church's presence in this secular community. Sister Helen worried sometimes about their safety. Two women living alone faced risks that convent life had previously eliminated. The freedom to make small choices felt revolutionary after years of institutional living. Both women remained deeply committed to their religious vows while enjoying their new independence. As November approached, they felt settled in their home, unaware that this haven would soon become the starting point for Baltimore's most enduring mystery. November 7, 1969. Friday evening brought the week's final responsibilities to a close. Sister Catherine finished grading essays from her sophomore English classes, satisfied with her students' improving analytical skills. Sister Helen was preparing dinner when Sister Cathy announced her need to run errands, deposit her paycheck, and buy dinner rolls for their Saturday meal with visiting family. "I'll be back within the hour," she told Sister Helen, gathering her purse and keys against the November chill. The drive to Edmondson Village took 15 minutes through familiar neighborhoods. At the First National Bank, Sister Cathy completed her transaction quickly, receiving her receipt. The bakery section offered fresh dinner rolls that would complement Saturday's meal. She selected a package, paid the cashier, and received her change along with the small paper bag. Witnesses would later remember seeing a nun shopping that evening, though none could pinpoint exact times. In 1969, religious women conducting ordinary errands attracted little attention. Sister Cathy moved through the shopping center as just another customer completing necessary tasks. The return journey should have taken her back through familiar neighborhoods to find Sister Helen setting the table for their quiet dinner. Instead, Sister Catherine Cesnik vanished into the November darkness. Her car would be found the next morning, neatly parked near their apartment building. Her purse remained undisturbed. The dinner rolls sat in their paper bag, a poignant reminder of interrupted normalcy. 11:30 p.m., November 7th. Sister Helen Russell Phillips checked the clock, her worry crystallizing into fear. Sister Cathy had never stayed out this late without calling. By midnight, she called Father Gerard Keough and Father Neil Magnus, two priests who knew Sister Cathy well and understood that her absence was deeply out of character. "We'll come over immediately," Father Keough assured her. The priests arrived within 30 minutes, organizing a systematic search of the nearby area, checking hospitals by telephone before expanding to parking lots and side streets around the shopping center. At 4:30 a.m., their worst fears were confirmed and complicated simultaneously. Sister Cathy's 1969 Ford Maverick sat in her own apartment complex parking lot, neatly positioned as if she had simply come home and walked away. The car was locked, her purse visible on the front seat along with the small bag of dinner rolls. The responding police officer took their initial report with professional attention that barely concealed his skepticism. Missing adults often turned up within hours. However, the discovery of her undisturbed car elevated the situation beyond routine disappearance. Sister Helen provided detailed descriptions of Sister Cathy's habits, personality, and recent state of mind. Nothing suggested depression, family troubles, or any reason for voluntary disappearance. Her life was stable, her work fulfilling, her relationships positive. As dawn approached, the search expanded to include nearby buildings and wooded areas. But the morning brought no answers, only deepening mystery. Saturday, November 8th. News of Sister Catherine's disappearance spread through Baltimore's Catholic community like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. Baltimore County Police expanded their investigation, canvassing the Edmondson Village Shopping Center and interviewing employees and customers who might have observed Sister Cathy on Friday evening. Local television stations picked up the story for Saturday broadcasts. Sister Cathy's photograph appeared on screens throughout the region, accompanied by appeals for information. Phone calls began coming in from concerned citizens reporting possible sightings, but most leads dissolved under scrutiny. Sister Helen spent Saturday surrounded by fellow nuns and priests trying to provide comfort while sharing her growing desperation. She repeated her account dozens of times, searching for overlooked details. Students organized prayer vigils outside Keough High School, young women who had found strength in Sister Cathy's classroom now feeling helpless. Parents called the school throughout the weekend, offering assistance with search efforts. Many had never spoken directly with the missing teacher, but knew their daughter's respect for her. Her disappearance felt like an attack on everything they trusted about their children's education. By Sunday morning, the story had gained regional attention. Newspapers across Maryland carried her photograph and case details. Radio stations provided regular updates. Yet despite expanded media coverage and hundreds of phone calls, no credible witnesses emerged to describe her movements after leaving the shopping center. January 3, 1970. Nearly 2 months had passed since Sister Catherine's disappearance. Active daily investigation had given way to periodic reviews as hope for finding her alive faded into grim acceptance. 2 hunters made the discovery that would transform the missing person case into homicide investigation. Walking through woods in Lansdowne, 6 miles from Sister Cathy's apartment, they noticed human remains partially concealed by fallen leaves and winter debris. The decomposed body lay in a remote but accessible clearing, clearly placed there deliberately by someone with local knowledge. Baltimore County Police secured the scene and called forensic specialists. The condition of the remains made identification challenging, but dental records would provide definitive confirmation that investigators grimly expected. Sister Helen received the phone call she had dreaded since November. The discovery location told its own story. Someone had driven to this secluded area with deliberate intent, selecting a spot where discovery seemed unlikely. Winter weather and 2 months of exposure had eliminated most trace materials that might have provided investigative leads. News of the discovery dominated Baltimore media coverage. The School Sisters of Notre Dame issued a statement expressing grief while requesting privacy. Students at Keough learned the news through tearful announcements that turned their worst fears into devastating reality. Sister Helen identified personal items found with the remains: a ring, religious medal, remnants of clothing from that final Friday evening. Baltimore's Catholic community reacted with shock and outrage. The murder of a nun violated every assumption about safety and sanctuary that defined their faith experience. January 1970. The autopsy revealed that Sister Catherine had died from multiple blunt force trauma wounds to her head. The severity suggested intense violence beyond what would be necessary to simply kill. The examination found no evidence of sexual assault, robbery, or other obvious motives. Her religious jewelry remained, and her car had been found with her purse intact. The condition of remains after 2 months, limited forensic analysis available to 1970 technology. Trace evidence that might have provided crucial leads had been destroyed by weather and decomposition. Detective interviews with Sister Helen and close associates revealed no obvious enemies or threats in Sister Cathy's life. The timing of her disappearance immediately after routine errands suggested either random selection or someone who knew her habits well enough to predict her movements. The fact that her car appeared undisturbed in her own parking lot indicated she had made it home safely before encountering her killer. Investigators theorized several scenarios. She might have surprised a burglar, been followed from the shopping center, or encountered someone she knew and trusted. The murder weapon was never recovered, though investigators suspected something heavy and rigid. The remote location in Lansdowne Woods required local knowledge, suggesting the killer wasn't a random stranger. Media coverage intensified public interest in finding Sister Cathy's killer. Baltimore citizens demanded answers about how such violence could touch someone so innocent and beloved. Church officials struggled to respond to questions about security and screening. As the initial investigation concluded, detectives faced the frustrating reality that they had a victim, a cause of death, and virtually no solid leads. Spring 1970. Baltimore County detectives launched systematic interviews with everyone who had known Sister Catherine. Sister Helen endured repeated questioning, describing Sister Cathy as happy and fulfilled, never mentioning feeling threatened or worried about anyone. Fellow nuns at Keough provided similar testimony. Sister Cathy had been well-liked among faculty, respected for her teaching abilities, and valued for her positive attitude toward church changes. Students faced gentle questioning about their beloved teacher, revealing her deep commitment to their welfare. The interviews revealed Sister Cathy's protective instincts toward young women staying after hours to help struggling learners, providing emotional support, encouraging higher education despite societal limitations. Clergy throughout the Baltimore Archdiocese faced questions about Sister Cathy's role in the religious community. Investigators found no obvious suspects or clear motives among those closest to Sister Cathy. Her life appeared remarkably free from personal conflicts that typically precede murder. Detectives expanded their canvas to include parents, neighbors, and merchants, but the search for someone who wished her harm yielded no promising results. Sister Cathy's personal belongings revealed a woman devoted to students and faith, with no evidence of fear or unusual precautions. Her desk contained lesson plans and notes about student progress materials of a dedicated teacher planning for the future. The investigation included reviewing recent Baltimore area crimes that might have been connected, but no similar attacks had occurred. By late spring, investigators faced the uncomfortable reality that exhaustive interviews had failed to identify credible suspects or clear motives. 1970, 1971. As the first anniversary approached, whispers began circulating through Baltimore's Catholic community, rumors more persistent than the official investigation. These conversations suggested that Sister Cathy's murder might not have been random violence, that she had discovered something dangerous within Keough's walls. The whispers focused particularly on Father A. Joseph Maskell, the school's chaplain and counselor. Students and parents spoke of his unusual access to young women, private counseling sessions, and behavior that seemed to blur appropriate boundaries. Nothing had been formally reported, but unease simmered beneath the surface. Some claimed Sister Cathy had questioned Father Maskell's methods with students. Others suggested she had learned about misconduct and planned to report it. The most disturbing rumors hinted at systemic abuse being covered up by institutional silence. Baltimore County Police became aware of these rumors but found them difficult to investigate. No one would make formal accusations or provide specific details that could be verified. Church officials dismissed the rumors as grief-driven speculation, pointing to the lack of concrete evidence. Yet the whispers persisted because they filled a void left by the stalled official investigation. With no arrests and no clear progress, the community created its own explanations. Students who had attended Keough began questioning interactions they had previously accepted as normal. The rumors created a climate of fear and mistrust within Baltimore's Catholic educational community. Parents asked more questions about their children's school experiences. Teachers became more cautious about reporting concerns through official channels. The persistent rumors began to reshape how people remembered Sister Catherine's murder, transforming it from seemingly random violence to potentially motivated institutional protection. 1970s, 1980s. Time buried Sister Catherine's murder beneath layers of new tragedies and changing priorities. The case gradually faded from front-page news to occasional anniversary articles, then to virtual silence as Baltimore faced fresh challenges. The official investigation never closed, but active work diminished to periodic file reviews and follow-up interviews when new tips emerged. Detective reports from the late 1970s reflect the pattern common to cold cases: diminishing returns on investigative effort. Witnesses had died or moved away. Physical evidence had been tested with available technology and yielded no new leads. Sister Helen moved away from Baltimore, seeking distance from memories and constant reminders. Students who had been in Sister Cathy's classes graduated, attended college, married, and began families. Yet many carried memories of their beloved teacher and wondered whether justice would ever find her killer. The School Sisters of Notre Dame established a memorial fund in Sister Catherine's name, providing scholarships for young women pursuing education degrees. Keough High School faced the challenge of moving forward while honoring Sister Cathy's memory. Father Maskell remained at Keough throughout the 1970s, his career apparently unaffected by persistent rumors. The whispers continued among some community members, but no formal accusations emerged. Cold case files show sporadic activity when new tips came in, but none advanced the case meaningfully. The lack of resolution created lasting trauma within Baltimore's Catholic community. Some families maintained informal networks, sharing updates when the case occasionally returned to public attention. By the mid-1980s, Sister Catherine's murder had achieved the status of Baltimore folklore, a tragic story that longtime residents remembered but newcomers learned about only through occasional retellings. Mid-1990s. Jean Wehner's decision to come forward shattered 25 years of silence and transformed Sister Catherine's murder from cold case to explosive controversy. Wehner had been a student at Keough during Sister Cathy's tenure and now approached authorities with allegations that stunned investigators. She alleged that Father Maskell had sexually abused her and other students over multiple years, using his position as chaplain to access and manipulate vulnerable teenagers. More shocking still, Wehner suggested that Sister Catherine had learned about the abuse and planned to report it to church authorities. Sister Cathy was trying to help us, Wehner told investigators. She knew something was wrong, and she was going to do something about it. That's why they killed her. Teresa Lancaster, another former Keough student, corroborated aspects of Wehner's allegations, describing similar experiences and confirming that Sister Catherine had shown unusual interest in students' interactions with Father Maskell in the weeks before her disappearance. The women's testimonies painted a picture of institutional dysfunction, where predatory behavior was enabled by authority structures that discouraged reporting. Baltimore County Police reopened their investigation with renewed focus on Father Maskell as a potential suspect. The delay in reporting created significant challenges. Memories had faded, witnesses had scattered, and physical evidence no longer existed. Father Maskell vehemently denied all accusations, and his attorney characterized the allegations as false memories implanted by therapists. The Catholic Archdiocese found itself confronting a crisis that threatened its credibility. Media coverage created a sensation, combining murdered nun, clerical abuse, institutional cover-up, and delayed justice. The emergence of these allegations marked a turning point, transforming Sister Catherine's case from unsolved murder to symbol of broader issues within the Catholic Church. Late 1990s. Baltimore County Cold Case Unit approached the reopened investigation with determination and caution. Detective interviews with Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster required delicate handling of traumatic memories while seeking verifiable details that could advance the criminal case. The women's allegations created a new timeline for Sister Catherine's final weeks. According to their accounts, she had been asking subtle but pointed questions about students' experiences with Father Maskell, suggesting she suspected inappropriate behavior and planned to take action. Father Maskell's denial was categorical and emphatic. Through his attorney, he characterized the allegations as fabricated attacks on his reputation, pointing to his long career without previous accusations and the suspicious timing of claims emerging during national clerical abuse scandals. The investigation expanded to include other former Keough students who might have witnessed inappropriate behavior or remembered Sister Catherine's concerns. Some supported aspects of the allegations, describing Father Maskell's unusual interest in their personal lives and counseling sessions that felt inappropriate in retrospect. The lack of contemporary documentation complicated the investigation significantly. School records from the 1960s were incomplete, and personnel files offered little insight into any concerns about Father Maskell's behavior. Investigators sought to establish whether Sister Catherine had made any formal or informal reports before her death. Legal experts noted significant challenges facing prosecutors, even if the investigation yielded supporting evidence. Statutes of limitations, death of potential witnesses, and degradation of physical evidence created nearly insurmountable obstacles to successful prosecution. The renewed investigation attracted additional accusers who came forward with their own allegations against Father Maskell. Community reaction was deeply divided between those who embraced the accusers as courageous truth-tellers and others who viewed the allegations with skepticism. Early 2000s, advances in forensic science offered new hope for solving Sister Catherine's murder. Baltimore County Cold Case Unit submitted preserved evidence for DNA testing that had been impossible during the original investigation. Clothing items recovered with Sister Cathy's remains underwent analysis using techniques that could potentially identify genetic material from her killer. The forensic examination also included reanalysis of evidence from her car and apartment. Results proved disappointing, but not entirely unexpected. The passage of time and environmental exposure had degraded genetic material beyond the point where reliable profiles could be established. The limited genetic material was also insufficient for forensic genealogy techniques that had proven successful in other cold cases. The failure of forensic science to provide answers forced investigators to rely more heavily on witness testimony and circumstantial evidence, bringing renewed focus to allegations against Father Maskell and their potential connection to Sister Catherine's murder. Interviews with Father Maskell became more confrontational as investigators pressed him for detailed accounts of his relationship with Sister Catherine and his knowledge of any concerns she might have expressed. The priest maintained his innocence while expressing frustration with persistent allegations. Legal experts noted that even if the investigation established Father Maskell's guilt, the passage of time had eliminated most possibilities for successful prosecution. The case had become more about historical truth than criminal justice. The forensic review also examined whether Sister Catherine's murder might have been connected to other unsolved crimes in the Baltimore area, but no clear patterns emerged. The early 2000s phase established important groundwork for future developments while confirming the significant challenges facing anyone seeking definitive answers. 2001. Father Maskell's death from cancer brought an unexpected conclusion to one aspect of Sister Catherine's case while leaving fundamental questions permanently unanswered. The man who had become the central figure in theories about her murder would never face trial or provide definitive answers about his potential involvement. Maskell died at age 62, having maintained his innocence throughout years of allegations and investigation. His death frustrated investigators who had hoped for either confession or additional evidence. Cold case detectives noted that suspects sometimes provide crucial information when facing terminal illness, but Maskell offered no deathbed revelations. Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster received news of Maskell's death with mixed emotions. While his passing eliminated any possibility of criminal prosecution for alleged abuse, it also meant their accusations would never be tested in court where his guilt or innocence might have been established. "He took his secrets with him," Wehner said. "We'll never know for certain what he did to Sister Cathy, but that doesn't change what he did to us." Baltimore County Police noted Maskell's death in case files, while emphasizing that the investigation into Sister Catherine's murder remained active. His death eliminated one potential suspect but did not close the case or preclude other theories. Maskell's burial site would later become significant when investigators sought to exhume his remains for DNA testing. Legal experts noted that his death effectively ended any civil litigation that abuse survivors might have pursued against him. Personally, though institutional liability cases against the Church could continue, the death marked another turning point in Sister Catherine's case, closing one investigative avenue while ensuring that questions about Maskell's potential involvement would remain permanently unanswered. 2002-2016. The years following Father Maskell's death brought periods of relative quiet punctuated by sporadic developments that kept Sister Catherine's case in public consciousness. Cold case detectives maintained periodic reviews while acknowledging limitations imposed by time and the death of key figures. Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster became advocates for other survivors of clerical abuse, using their experience to support legislative reforms and awareness campaigns. They also pursued civil litigation against the Catholic Archdiocese of Baltimore, seeking damages for alleged abuse and institutional failures to protect students. Cold case files from this period show occasional tips and leads that required investigation. Anonymous phone calls, letters, and later email messages provided theories and accusations that detectives evaluated for credibility and potential evidentiary value. Advances in forensic technology prompted periodic re-examination of physical evidence, though the degraded nature of materials from 1969 continued to limit scientific analysis. Each new technique offered hope that was typically disappointed by practical limitations. Documentary filmmakers and investigative journalists periodically revisited the case, interviewing surviving witnesses and examining evidence. These productions kept Sister Catherine's story in public view while rarely advancing understanding of her murder. Former students organized informal memorial services on significant anniversaries, gathering to remember their beloved teacher and maintain pressure for resolution. The Baltimore area's changing demographics meant that locations significant to the rocked case were often modified or demolished. Sister Helen Russell Phillips, now retired from teaching, occasionally participated in media interviews about her murdered roommate. Her memories remained vivid, and she continued to hope for eventual resolution. The investigation files grew thicker with reports and analysis, but no breakthrough emerged to definitively identify Sister Catherine's killer. 2017. The release of The Keepers on Netflix created a media earthquake that transformed Sister Catherine's cold case into a global phenomenon. The 7-episode documentary series brought unprecedented attention to her murder while giving voice to survivors of alleged abuse at Keough High School. Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster emerged as central figures, sharing their stories of alleged abuse and their belief that Sister Catherine had been murdered to prevent her from exposing the truth. Their emotional testimonies gave human faces to decades-old allegations. The series presented a detailed timeline of Sister Catherine's final weeks, highlighting her interactions with students and evidence that she might have been investigating misconduct at Keough. Baltimore County Police found themselves overwhelmed with new tips and leads generated by the documentary's global reach. The renewed attention created both opportunities and challenges for investigators. While some tips provided genuinely new information, others repeated long-debunked theories or reflected viewers' emotional responses rather than factual knowledge. Media outlets worldwide picked up the story, examining the case's broader implications for understanding institutional accountability. The documentary's impact extended beyond entertainment to influence real-world developments, with police dedicating additional resources and the Catholic Archdiocese facing renewed pressure to address historical abuse allegations. Former Keough students who had remained silent for decades came forward with their own stories and memories. Social media amplified the documentary's impact, with viewers creating online communities dedicated to analyzing evidence and discussing theories. The global attention transformed Sister Catherine from a local Baltimore tragedy into an international symbol of courage and truth-telling. Her photograph became recognizable to millions who had never heard her story before the documentary's release. The exhumation of Father Maskell's remains represented both a dramatic development and a scientific long shot in the decades-old investigation. Baltimore County detectives sought DNA evidence that might definitively connect him to Sister Catherine's murder or eliminate him as a suspect. The legal process required court approval and careful coordination between multiple agencies. Forensic experts conducted the exhumation at Baltimore's Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery under tight security to prevent media interference. Laboratory analysis of Maskell's remains proceeded slowly and methodically. Forensic scientists extracted DNA samples from bone and tooth material, seeking genetic profiles that could be compared against any unknown DNA recovered from Sister Catherine's crime scene. Results announced later in 2017 proved disappointing for those seeking definitive answers. The DNA extracted from Maskell's remains did not match any genetic material recovered from Sister Catherine's clothing or the crime scene. However, investigators emphasized that this result did not definitively clear him of involvement. The lack of a DNA match could be explained by several factors. The degraded condition of evidence from 1969 meant that useful genetic material might never have been preserved. Additionally, the killer might not have left detectable DNA traces, or such evidence might have been contaminated over time. Detective statements following the DNA results stressed that the investigation remained active and that other suspects and theories continued to be pursued. Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster expressed disappointment while maintaining their belief in Maskell's guilt, emphasizing that the lack of genetic evidence did not invalidate their allegations. The exhumation demonstrated the lengths to which investigators were willing to go in pursuing answers, though the negative results left fundamental questions about Sister Catherine's murder unresolved. Former students of Archbishop Keough High School transformed their grief and anger into organized advocacy for survivors of institutional abuse. Led by Jean Wehner and Teresa Lancaster, they created support networks and pushed for legislative changes, extending or eliminating statutes of limitations for childhood sexual abuse cases. Their efforts focused on providing justice for historical victims, with Sister Catherine's case becoming a rallying point for legislative initiatives. The survivors organized annual memorial gatherings, combining remembrance of their beloved teacher with advocacy for transparency and accountability. Community rallies outside Keough marked significant dates in the case timeline. Participants held candles, displayed Sister Catherine's photograph, and demanded continued investigation. The peaceful demonstrations maintained public pressure for resolution. The advocacy efforts extended beyond Maryland to support survivors nationwide. Wehner and Lancaster became prominent voices in the national conversation about institutional accountability and protection of vulnerable individuals within religious organizations. Their work contributed to several legislative victories that expanded opportunities for abuse survivors to seek civil remedies against institutions that had failed to protect them. Educational initiatives emerged from the survivors' advocacy, including programs designed to help children recognize inappropriate behavior. The survivors worked with documentary filmmakers and journalists to ensure that Sister Catherine's story remained in public consciousness. Support groups for abuse survivors found inspiration in the courage demonstrated by Sister Catherine's former students, encouraging others to break their own silence and seek healing. Baltimore County Police revealed the extensive scope of their investigation through public records releases, demonstrating decades of dedicated effort to solve Sister Catherine's murder. The case files contain thousands of pages documenting interviews, evidence analysis, and investigative theories. The records showed that detectives had interviewed hundreds of witnesses over nearly 50 years, following every credible lead and pursuing numerous theories about potential suspects and motives. The thoroughness contradicted any suggestions that authorities had not taken the case seriously. However, the documents also revealed fundamental challenges facing investigators in a case where physical evidence was limited and witness memories had faded over time. Despite exhaustive efforts, no smoking gun evidence had emerged to definitively identify Sister Catherine's killer. Prosecutors reviewed the accumulated evidence multiple times over the decades, consistently concluding that insufficient proof existed to support criminal charges against any specific suspect. The legal standard for prosecution required evidence beyond reasonable doubt that simply was not available. The investigation had explored numerous theories beyond the allegations against Father Maskell, examining possibilities including random violence, connections to organized crime, and involvement by other individuals who might have had access to Sister Catherine. Each potential suspect underwent thorough background investigation, alibis were checked and verified, and any connections to the victim were carefully analyzed. None of these inquiries yielded evidence sufficient to support criminal charges or definitively solve the case. The public release of investigative documents allowed WT independent analysis by journalists and legal experts who sought to identify overlooked clues or alternative theories. These external reviews generally confirmed the thoroughness of official efforts. Forensic scientists explained the significant limitations that environmental factors and time had imposed on physical evidence in Sister Catherine's case. The 2-month exposure period before her body's discovery had eliminated most trace materials that might have identified her killer. Modern DNA analysis techniques require viable genetic material to produce useful results. The degradation caused by weather exposure, decomposition, and decades of storage had rendered most biological evidence unsuitable for reliable testing. Experts noted that cases from the 1960s and 1970s faced particular challenges because evidence collection and preservation techniques were less sophisticated than current standards. Many types of trace evidence that would be carefully preserved today were either not collected or not stored properly. The lack of viable DNA evidence meant that investigators had to rely on traditional detective work, witness interviews, timeline reconstruction, and circumstantial evidence analysis. These methods could build compelling theories but rarely provided the definitive proof needed for prosecution. Advanced forensic techniques continued to emerge throughout the 2000s and 2010s, prompting periodic re-examination of Sister Catherine's evidence. Each new scientific development offered hope that was typically disappointed by the practical limitations of degraded materials. Scientists emphasized that negative DNA results did not prove innocence, just as the absence of genetic evidence did not prevent someone from being the actual killer. The forensic limitations meant that Sister Catherine's case would likely never be resolved through scientific analysis alone. Veteran detectives who had worked on Sister Catherine's case throughout their careers reflected on missed opportunities and the evolution of investigative techniques over nearly 5 decades. Their insights provided perspective on both the challenges and possibilities that had defined the long investigation. Retired investigators acknowledged that some early investigative decisions might have been different with the benefit of hindsight and modern understanding of evidence preservation. However, they emphasized that the case had received consistent attention and resources throughout its history. The detectives noted that public perceptions of the investigation were sometimes influenced by fictional portrayals of police work that created unrealistic expectations about the speed and certainty of criminal justice. Real-world investigations, particularly cold cases, involve far more ambiguity and frustration. Current investigators continued to review the case files periodically, looking for overlooked connections or new approaches that might yield progress. The dedication to Sister Catherine's case remains strong within the Baltimore County Police Department despite the passage of time. The investigative experience gained from Sister Catherine's case had influenced police procedures and training programs designed to improve the handling of similar crimes. Her murder had contributed to better understanding of evidence preservation and witness interview techniques. Every November 7th, former students gathered at various locations throughout Baltimore to remember Sister Catherine Cesnik and maintain their commitment to seeking justice for her murder. These annual vigils combined mourning with determination that her story would not be forgotten. The memorial services typically began at the apartment building where Sister Catherine had lived, moved to the shopping center where she had last been seen alive, and concluded at churches throughout the Baltimore area. Participants carried candles and photographs while sharing memories of their beloved teacher. Each year brought new participants, family members of former students, community activists, and individuals who had learned about Sister Catherine's story through media coverage. The growing attendance demonstrated the lasting impact of her life and the continued demand for answers about her death. The vigils also served as opportunities for survivors of abuse to find support and solidarity with others who had experienced similar trauma. Sister Catherine's memory provided inspiration for those seeking to transform their pain into positive advocacy for others. Young people who had never known Sister Catherine personally joined the memorial gatherings, learning about her story and the importance of speaking truth to power. Her legacy continued to inspire new generations of advocates for justice and transparency. The annual remembrances received media coverage that kept Sister Catherine's case in public consciousness while honoring her contributions to education and social justice. Each anniversary renewed calls for continued investigation and resolution of her murder. Today, Sister Catherine Cesnik's case remains officially unsolved, but her influence extends far beyond the mystery of her death. Her story has become a catalyst for broader conversations about institutional accountability, the protection of vulnerable individuals, and the courage required to speak truth in the face of power. The investigation continues with periodic reviews by Baltimore County cold case detectives who maintain hope that new evidence or witnesses might eventually emerge. Technological advances in forensic science offer possibilities that did not exist in previous decades. Her former students, now grandmothers themselves, continue to advocate for legislative changes and support systems that protect children from abuse. Their efforts honor Sister Catherine's memory by working to prevent others from experiencing similar trauma and institutional failures. The Netflix documentary The Keepers ensured that Sister Catherine's story reached a global audience, inspiring similar investigations into historical abuse cases and institutional cover-ups worldwide. Her name has become synonymous with the courage to challenge authority when protecting the innocent. Educational institutions have implemented new policies and training programs designed to prevent the kind of institutional failures that may have contributed to Sister Catherine's death. Her legacy lives on in improved protections for students and better reporting mechanisms for suspected abuse. The Catholic Church has faced increased scrutiny and demands for transparency, partly as a result of cases like Sister Catherine's. Her story contributed to broader reforms in how religious institutions handle allegations of misconduct and support survivors of abuse. Sister Helen Russell Phillips, now in her 80s, occasionally speaks about her murdered roommate at conferences and memorial events. Her memories of Sister Catherine remain vivid, and she continues to hope for eventual resolution of the case that changed her life forever. In Baltimore, a scholarship fund established in Sister Catherine's name continues to support young women pursuing careers in education. The practical memorial ensures that her commitment to learning and teaching touches new generations of students and educators. The investigation files remain active at Baltimore County Police Headquarters, a testament to the lasting commitment to find justice for Sister Catherine. Each new detective who inherits the case brings fresh perspectives to evidence that has been examined countless times over 5 decades. On quiet evenings, a single candle burns beside Sister Catherine's photograph in memorial displays throughout Baltimore. The steady flame represents the enduring hope that truth will eventually overcome the darkness that claimed a woman whose only crime was caring too deeply about the students she served. The story reminds us that some mysteries transcend the simple question of who committed a crime. Sister Catherine Cesnik's murder became a mirror reflecting the moral challenges facing institutions and individuals when confronted with the choice between comfortable silence and dangerous truth. Though her killer's identity remains unknown, Sister Catherine's legacy of courage, compassion, and commitment to justice continues to inspire those who refuse to let her memory fade into forgotten history.